Heidi ho, everyone. How are you doing? My name is Sharon Combs, and this is Knowledge or Nonsense. Listen, I'm so excited about this series that we're starting on authenticity. I'm excited about our guest. The initial guest is someone that really brought some things to my attention and was like, I think this will be a good topic for us to talk about. And you know what? She was absolutely right. And so tonight we're going to talk about authenticity, what it looks like, if it's dangerous or if it's daring, if it's positive or if it's punitive. We're going to look at the different things that relate to authenticity, regardless of sex, gender, class. Just how do you show up authentically as yourself in your professional career and in your personal life? And so we're going to talk about that tonight. Again, I'm excited about talking about it. I'm excited to really kind of get in this conversation. And I would encourage you to put your comments in there. If there's something you want to say, but maybe you don't want everyone to know that it has come from you, then by all means, text that to 214-717-5921. I believe this episode and this series is going to add value to many in the healthcare industry and those that are not even inside of healthcare industry, because authenticity is something that we want to be able to operate in. And it's something that sometimes, it can be uncomfortable. It can be uncomfortable getting acclimated to authentically being yourself in a professional environment. So without further ado, you guys know what to do. Share this video now. Get your popcorn, get your drinks, get your fingers ready to type it in and, put your comments inside. And we'll be right back in just a moment to find out more about authenticity with our guest, Anita Cassell. Anita, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. It's Monday. It's coming off that holiday weekend in the month of May, getting ready for the summer. So I'm well. It is well with my soul. It is well.
Awesome.
And I want to thank you. Hey guys, if you don't know, Anita is an AVP, Assistant Vice President. She's located on the East Coast, but she is an industry advocate. She's someone that has been in healthcare, that has been at different levels of the organizational chart within healthcare. And she's someone that brings real-time value, professional value, insight, and wisdom. And so I'm very glad that she'll be joining us, that you are joining us tonight, and that you actually talked to me about this topic of being authentic. Just in April at HSPA. Then after that, when we just happened to have a phone conversation, just about being authentically yourself. And so that's what I'm going to say about Anita. Is there anything you would like to share about yourself, Anita, as far as?
I think that, being your authentic self is everything that I work on every day. It's what I live. It's how I work. It's how I walk. It's how I talk. I think that it's so important, and I wasn't always one that could do that. So it takes a lot of self-discipline, a lot of learning yourself to be able to get to that level.
It does. And so for those of you who are listening, even right now, regardless of where you are in your professional career or your leadership journey, please hear when we say it does take time and intentionality to grow into your authentic self. You may be completely comfortable being yourself outside of the workplace, but again, it takes time, intentionality, and you have to get used to showing up authentically as yourself. It's not often just about your skill set, because many people have the skill set, but it still doesn't mean you're able to be authentic. So Anita, one of the first questions I wanted to ask you is, what are some of the challenges and the benefits of being authentically you?
I think some of the challenges are feeling like you don't fit in with the typical group, feeling or particular groups, challenges of being cast aside or just that feeling of not belonging in a certain atmosphere. And I do think that it can happen with people in the work setting, but also in personal settings. I think that some of it is a confidence level in yourself. But I do think that that comes in time and learning yourself first. Because a lot of times I think that we try to be the picture of what other people see us as being, and we have to really get in tune with ourselves and decide what kind of person am I. Um, I think some of the benefits of being your authentic self is feeling better at the end of the day, knowing that you didn't cave to what other people see you as, and that you actually are walking out at the end of the day, whether it be at work or whether it be your personal life, you're walking every day knowing that I am me. And if I'm not good enough for this group or this person, that's okay, because maybe I'm not for everyone, but I'm going to be myself. And I think that it took me a long time to get there. But now I'm very comfortable with that. And I will not change me to fit into other people's opinions or perceptions of me.
That is so good. Initially, when I really began to move in toward like leadership, leadership is my background. That's what I went to university for, things like that. But when I really began to move into it, I noticed a clash between what I often term it zip code, but
Mm-hmm.
it was a clash between the narratives I grew up with and the desires I had. And I was like, well, and so initially I was like, well, it's because, you know, I feel uncomfortable because I'm black, or I feel uncomfortable because I'm a female, or I feel uncomfortable. Like I would look for reasons to justify the behavior instead of just saying, change the
Yeah.
behavior.
Yeah.
Regardless of the reason, that's nice for root cause analysis. But even when you know it, you still have to change it. And so even the imposter syndrome, I thought about that and I was like, everyone that I've talked to who said they dealt with imposter syndrome, rarely has it been a non-marginalized community. When it is like a male, it's because maybe the male was poor or there wasn't people he was around. But I was like, well, then what is imposter syndrome except getting acclimated to a new area?
Right.
Do we just give it a term so we feel better about it? So one of the things also I wanted to say about a benefit, when you were talking, I was like, yeah, that's self-care and less stress,
Right.
because it's got to be exhausting, always trying to fit into a box that is not authentically you. It has to
Absolutely.
be exhausting. And I thought about the high turnover in healthcare. Maybe if individuals had permission, or I don't know, but being able to be your authentic self has got to be a plus for retention. What do you see? Do you see that there could be a correlation between us being able to retain the top tier talent by giving people either permission or education or tips to be authentically themselves?
Absolutely. I think that when you're in an environment where, you feel like you don't fit in, it's uncomfortable. You're going to search for environments where you do feel more at ease and more comfortable. So I think the lessons for me was to learn to just be myself, no matter who likes it, who doesn't like it. As long as I know that I'm being professional, as long as I know that I'm doing my job, not disrespectful. I think that there's so many different avenues of not being authentic, whether that's people looking at your color, people looking at your hair, people looking at your clothing. But what I had to understand is a lot of people in those meetings, they have no clue what I'm talking about. They have no clue to do my job, just like I don't have any clue to do theirs. So I don't necessarily have to fit into their bubble to be able to do a great job. And once I realized, I think you tend to put off a little more self-confidence. And when you do, I think people start seeing that and appreciating that even more, because they know, what, Anita's going to be Anita. This person's going to be them. And I think that it truly speaks volumes if you can dig in and learn yourself and know, who am I? exactly who am I? Am I this person that wants to be in this executive room and, look like everybody else in there? Or do I have my own look? Do I have my own personality? Um, Sometimes people don't get my personality, or sometimes people don't get the way I may talk, but that's okay. I'm being true to myself, and I won't waver from that because it took me so long to get there.
Okay, with the not wavering from yourself, do you believe that in your experience, and again, guys, it's knowledge and nonsense. We really like to look and vet different perspectives, different viewpoints, different positions, because position sometimes changes even viewpoint.
Right.
Do you feel like the confidence level you have now with being yourself is essential to you being in the role that you're in? Like, do you feel like authenticity maybe as an entry level person could have prevented some growth?
I think that, me personally, I think that my um, move into being more authentic came with experience, came with meeting people that I know are authentic, came from being around the right um, atmosphere, the right support systems. I think that this is a topic that's not talked about a lot, and I think the more that we talk about it, especially, and I don't mean any disrespect to our men leaders out there, but especially the women leaders, women of color, women, just women period, in leadership, have to deal with so much pressure, to look a certain way, look the part, talk the part. And I think until you can really dive in and understand yourself and be comfortable with who you are, that's the only way your authentic self is gonna come out. Um, it's not easy to do, but once you do it, it's so satisfying. I go in every day, whether it's actually, like I said, work or personal. Now I'm just like, okay, well, if they don't like me, that's their issue. I had to realize that's their problem, not my problem. you know um, I think we take on, especially as women, I think we take on a lot of things on our shoulders that's not meant for us to take, and we take that personal, and we want to fit in, and we want to, look like everybody else, or we want to make sure we're liked and we're welcomed into these areas, but we don't have to be. Like I said, I know my job better than anybody else in that room. So I feel very comfortable being able to be myself now. It took me a long time, though.
Okay. Were there any professional groups that help you develop on this journey of authenticity?
Actually, no. I remember there was a CNO that didn't fit the part. She didn't look like most CNOs that I've seen in institutions. Same thing. She didn't have the short haircut and wore the suits and things. She looked herself. She looked like, this is how I am. This is the kind of person I am. This is how I dress. This is how I look. And she's an amazing CNO. And I remember her telling me, Anita, no matter what anybody says, what anybody thinks of you, how anybody looks at you, always be your authentic self. And that's what will carry you the farthest.
Excellent, excellent. One of my mentors, it's not a healthcare mentor, but it is just a life mentor. But one of my mentors, especially as far as financial development, she's a bona fide millionaire. She's been a millionaire probably. I've known her about 15 or 20 years. So throughout the entire time, she's been a millionaire. Not that that qualifies her, but it doesn't disqualify either.
Right.
But one of the things she was sharing with me one day, we were at a restaurant. This is about being your authentic self. And it was time. We were at a restaurant and the service was horrible. It was just her and I talking. The service was truly, it was horrible. It was not good service at all. And so when it was time for us to pay the tab, I was going to pay the tab. And I I gave like a extra large tip. And she looked at me and she said, why are you tipping him that much? What are you doing? She's like, the like basically like he sucked. And she didn't tell me not to tip him anything. She was just like, why are you doing this above and beyond? And typically when she asks me these questions, I think before I answer, because she doesn't really ask questions for no reason, you know? She's like, why would you do that? And I said, well, because they say Black people don't tip. And so, and she was like, so you're just going to be responsible for the actions of all Black people everywhere you go? You're going to tip for every Black person that hasn't ever tipped? And when she gave it to me like that, I was just like, dang. And those of you who know, or people who've been around when I'm teaching, I talk a lot about T skills, which are transferable. So the moment we cracked that nut open by her asking that question, it made me look at other areas where I was doing something from a false sense of responsibility. Like, that's false responsibility. His performance did suck. Like, he was horrible. You know, we were sucking ice. He didn't get any refills. I don't know why or whatever, but it wasn't good service. So why was I willing to give 2 or 3 times? And that's part of the being authentically me. Authentically, I would have been like, you don't deserve anything. I'm going to give you 10 to 15% because everybody should eat, but you don't deserve anything extra, you know? But again,
but you didn't want to be that person.
I didn't want to be that person. And at that time, even in our relationship, I'm still trying to prove my growth, you know? But then there comes a certain point where you just operate, man. You operate. I was still trying to prove not only to her, but to the server who I don't even know.
Wow.
It's deep, right? It's deep, but you see that. Go ahead.
That's deep, because I used to spend years trying to prove myself to others. Now, you know, we could get really deep into this conversation, but there's so many people that have, you know, we all have things that have happened in our lives, whether it be relationships, whether it be family situations, as a kid, as a teenager, as an adult, whatever it may be. We think that those things don't affect us, or we think we've healed from things, and we have, but at the same time, they affect certain things in you. So I think that some of that we carry over. You know, we carry, and unconsciously, you know, we carry that over into everyday life, everyday situations. And we want to make sure, you know, like, I'm better than that. You got to prove to everybody, but then you're also trying to prove to yourself. And when you get to a point that you feel like, I no longer have to prove myself to anybody, that's when that authentic self starts coming out.
And can I just tell you, it is an amazing place to be because it's less exhausting.
Absolutely.
You really begin to truly have confidence even in your abilities.
Yeah.
You know, and you begin to give yourself permission, like, you don't have to be perfect.
Absolutely.
Excellence and perfection are 2 different things. And so you mentioned the word about our bias, and I believe we all have bias, whatever card. Like in my case, that would have been what some people may term the race card. Whatever reason, I was attributing me over tipping to not, you know, the false responsibility of race. But whatever card, whether it's sex, gender, age, whatever it is, there can be some unconscious bias. So what I like to do is I like to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, can we maybe look at some of the ways that bias may prevent people, be it us or not, because we don't have to go super deep into our lives, but we want to be able to help our audience how bias can actually show up in a way that may undermine or slow us from being authentically ourselves.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, we'll be right back. We're going to do a quick commercial and show some support to the people who support us.
Those in the know SIPS Consults. SIPS Consults is hiring. Confident, competent, and consistent. Starting as a consultant and a volunteer, SIPS has grown into a dynamic group of stellar sterile processing professionals, offering excellent benefits, 401k, and consultant in training program. We are hiring certified technicians, leads, supervisors, interim managers, educators, coordinators. Apply at recruiting@sipsconsults.com or dial 1-866-615-7977.
All right, guys, we're back. This is Knowledge and Nonsense. I am speaking with Anita Cassell, AVP, industry advocate, industry voice, someone who just gives back when she's on camera and when she's off camera. And so we were just talking about unconscious bias and how it can affect us being authentically ourselves, what are some ways that it may show up when you think about bias?
I think unconscious bias, of course, like you said, you hit the nail on the head. Everybody has it. If you ask in a room, who's got a bias, nobody wants to raise their hand. Nobody's going to say, oh, I do, but we all do, whether that's socially, professionally. We can look at um, in social atmospheres, we may be in certain settings that we feel uncomfortable. But why do we feel uncomfortable? Is it because, who may it be attending, the type of um, culture that we're around at that particular time? I think we all have unconscious bias that a lot of times it comes from things we have heard, remarks that we've heard, people's stories that we have heard. Comes a lot from the news. I think that it caters sometimes to what we think on the inside. I actually spend most of my time not watching news and certain things that I think can actually sway your opinions in different directions. So I try to make sure, for at least for me, that I look at every situation uniquely, because at the end of the day, like you said, we do all have unconscious bias. And I think it's important that we understand that, and that we're open to those conversations, and we're open to people being able to point those things out to us so that we can learn. It's not an ignorance. I think it's just something that we are unaware of and that we need to learn from and do better.
If you were speaking just a word or some encouragement to individuals who are in healthcare, what would it be as it related to showing up authentically as yourself? And I don't want to, let's limit this to maybe, not limit. Can we maybe first start with people who are coming in who may be Gen Z, millennials, Gen Z, like the different generations? What would
Yes.
you say to them so that they show up authentically as themselves, or as authentic as they know themselves to be at this time?
Mhm. I think that's a great question, because I think we deal with that a lot in healthcare, with the generational gaps. And I think that it causes some differences sometimes in the departments, learning curves and things like that. So I think that you have to first know who yourself is. But when you come in, be yourself. Don't feel like you have to fall into, this is the way this group has always done it, this is the way this group does it. Be yourself. And a lot of times when you do, you're going to be more welcome than I think when you're trying to pretend, as they say, or be fake in trying to fit into somebody else's narrative. I think it's important to just acknowledge that, if you're someone that likes to, dress a little quirky, then don't stop doing that just because you're coming around certain people. Just be yourself.
Okay. Now, how about for people who maybe aren't new or entry level or, just coming in? These individuals may be managers or supervisors. They've been in the field 15 or 20 years. And right now, they are not comfortable to be their authentic selves. And this is a no judgment zone. Don't start thinking about people who who are like that, because so let's be gracious. But what would we say? Is there anything with
Yeah, I
love you
think
would
that
say to that? Go ahead.
yeah, I think that the generations that may already be there and have spent some time in these narratives already and don't know how to find themselves. I think for leadership, especially, we should be spending time with these individuals. We should be spending time helping, mentoring, but also talking to them, getting to know them, so that maybe you can point out things to them about themselves that they're not even realizing. I saw an employee one time helping out. She was a older employee, and a newer employee had started, and their first reaction was, oh, these new people, they don't know anything, these young people, they feel so entitled. So there's that gap again, but also her feeling like she's stuck in this zone. And then after spending time with people, talking about the differences, finding something in common with a person doesn't mean that you're going to understand everything about them or you're even going to like all their ways. But if you find one thing in common that you can relate to that person, that makes such a difference. And so then after that, seeing this person now go from somebody not understanding a different generation and how can they work like this and why do they do things like this, to now partnering with them and learning, well, let me learn your way and you learn my way. So I think that the leadership has a lot to do with that, in spending time and building those, giving those roadblocks, those building blocks in order for them to set that up. I think spending time was a big one for me, is having those conversations with them one-on-one, getting to know them better.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I do want to give you your flowers. I thank you because I know that you've even said things to me that have helped me to kind of look at, all right, what are you apologizing for? Like, why did you stop speaking? And
Right.
oftentimes it's just because I am unsure of how the hearer would hear that. Whereas if I was somewhere more comfortable in my own zone, in an area that I am familiar with, I would just say, hey, this is what the study showed. This is what experience has told me. These are the options, and these are some things that I've seen happen. And then that person can make an informed decision with that information. I don't have to hold it. I don't have to have that false responsibility. So I thank you for that, especially doing that first time, because that was my first time kind of being around you and talking like more than just a hi. And so I was conscious of the fact, like, oh, this is Anita, she's well known in the industry. Let me observe. And you were just like, hey, stop. What's on your mind? Like, bring it.
Just be
And I was
yourself.
like, okay, let's go.
That's
So
right. Just be yourself.
just be. And so I appreciate that, because I actually coach people on helping them be authentic. So this is why I say, even for leaders, this is a time. It does take time, because I've helped people be authentic for years. And for you to say that, like, had you not said it, I may have been unaware that I was operating in a bias, an unconscious bias. So I appreciate you for catching it. Right on. Yeah.
No,
Right
I
on.
think that it's all in just being yourself and understanding other people's, like, I'm not comfortable on camera necessarily. I'm not comfortable taking pictures. I'm not comfortable doing videos, but knowing that I feel comfortable speaking with you, I feel comfortable talking to you about things that are important to both of us. I have to get out of that comfort zone and realize, you know what? It doesn't matter. I'm just going to be myself.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. All right. So we're talking about authenticity. We've talked about some of the benefits of authenticity, some of the challenges, some of the places that it comes from. Um, are there tips that you have when you look back? Like, are there indicators that, hey, I'm not being authentic, or tips to kind of measure to say, hey, am I being true to myself, my core values, who I actually am? Are there tips that you have for that?
Absolutely. If you're feeling stressed out, if you're feeling overwhelmed, not just from the responsibilities you have, but you're leaving every day and you're feeling just drained from a sense of, again, not belonging, or you're just feeling defeated. You're feeling that no matter what I do, it's not good enough. It's not this. A lot of that doesn't have to do with your abilities to do the job. A lot of that has to do with how you are not being your authentic self. Once you are able to capture that, once you're able to start practicing that, you are such a happier person. You walk out every day with a smile on your face, knowing, hey, I did my best. I may not have been able to accomplish everything I set out to do today, but I did my best. I, treat people with respect. I'm professional. I do my job. But at the same time, I'm being me. And if me laughing goofy, to somebody else, maybe they're thinking, oh, she's a little goofy, but that's okay.
Yeah.
That's me. If I want to be goofy, that's what I'm going to be today. So I think that once you tap into that, you're going to have such a better day. You're not going to be as stressed. You're going to be a little more energized in a way. I went through that where I was completely disoriented and felt like I just needed to run away. I felt like I just needed to be away. I felt like I wasn't good enough for anything, anybody, any circumstance. And I took some time off for just me. And when I did, that's when I started realizing, you know what? I don't have to look this perfect part. I can just be myself. And when I came back from taking that time off for myself, people noticed and they're like, wow, Anita, you have changed. This is, like, I like this Anita. When all along, it was the same Anita. I
Yes.
just had to learn how to bring it out and not care that what everybody thinks of me. And I think that once you tap into that, it's such a different world for you.
And so I just, the comment here is trust your dopeness or your skill set.
Yes.
Whatever it is that you're second guessing, go ahead and trust that.
Absolutely.
And the onus actually becomes on other people if they need clarification or if there's something that's what communication is about. We have to be able to communicate things that make us excited and things that may not make us excited. And if you don't understand something, then ask it. And I love it because even when you ask, if it's something that is not really a deal breaker, or maybe your preference or your narrative or your bias, then that will be discovered, not in a punitive way, but in a way that all parties can be educated so we can collaborate more effectively. We can work together better as a team. So yeah, definitely trust your dopeness or your skill set. It is time. We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, I would like to ask you, Anita, and this question, this is what we call a hot seat question. It is about authenticity. But I wanted to ask you, how do you separate what is actually your hang up versus someone else's? Because we do work in a competitive workplace and we do work in a healthcare. Sometimes people actually say something and it's not even, what's your hang up versus what someone else's is? Because as I grew, there were many times younger, definitely in my 20s, when I would put down my skill set or the very thing that got me this position because someone else who didn't get the position and doesn't like me in it was saying something about my authentic self, And then later I found out, if I was working or giving more hours to something, I wasn't saying they had to. It's just I was trying to be solution oriented. And well, you have unrealistic things. I'm like, you don't have to do this. This is just what I'm doing. So when we come back, if you don't mind, maybe if we can dig deep into how do we separate what is our actual hang up where we need to adjust, we need to take responsibility and accountability for behaviors, and how do we decipher or discern when it has nothing to do with us per se, but it could be someone else looking through their filter, whether that's manipulation, jealousy, insecurity, whatever it is. It could be them having you on a pedestal. I don't know what is guiding their things, but how do you separate what is someone's hang up versus what is someone else's hang up? And so that's something that I would like for us to talk about when we come back. We're going to have a couple of commercials, one that I'll show you and then one that I'll tell you about. It's going to be a verbal on-site commercial. But when we're both back on screen, that's going to be all you, Anita.
All right.
You. Oh, as soon as I can find what I'm looking for, there it is. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching Knowledge and Nonsense. This is Sharon Combs. I'm going to speak to you just briefly about something that we've called the reset. Some of you know about the reset. You've already gone through it. Some of us in healthcare have gone through the reset, and the people who have gone through it, you're able to see them. There is a higher visibility, not because of the reset per se, but because whatever they unlocked in that reset allowed them to move forward, even in being authentically themselves, like we're talking about today. But they've written books, they've started podcasts, they've gotten the positions they want to get, whether they want to be an educator in another area or they just want to see a raise within the IT area. whatever that is. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the screen right quick and tell you a little bit about the reset, but not too much, just so I can answer the questions that have been coming up these past few weeks over the reset. So the first thing I want us to do is we go to this board, you guys. Hopefully you can see where it says Synergy Reset. Here's the deal with the Synergy Reset. It's different in that it actually has synergy. So when we do the Synergy Reset, I'm on site every day. It's 30 days. I'm on site twice a day, working with you through the reset. And what happens in it is you're able to transform your career, your finances, even relationships in just 30 days. Well, what's the difference, Sharon, between the Synergy Reset and the regular reset? The regular reset, you can go onto the app right now and get it. pushapp.sharoncombs.com. You can get it. You can work it through by yourself. However, with the Synergy Reset, you get to interact with me and other reset students. You get to talk to individuals. You have access to the modules for a full 12 months. Within that 30 days, that jumpstart, it's like quantum leap jumpstart. You will have guaranteed movement, but in the Synergy, you have access to other people, myself included, that will help inspire you, encourage you, hold you accountable. If we all were able to hold ourselves accountable at the right place and as far as ideally, none of us would need to lose weight, eat healthier, or do any type of thing like that. So the synergy of it will carry you on days that your willpower doesn't. And so each day we tackle the challenges, we make adjustments crucial for your success. If something that you've placed in front of you as a goal, once we begin to move toward it, you begin to see some barriers or some things that need to be hit before you can complete that goal. We're going to make those adjustments. We're going to provide you the encouragement and tools, not just a cheerleading squad, but actual real-time tools. So that's what the Synergy Reset is about. And I do want to let you know, too, the Synergy Reset, even though it's with a group, your reset is unique to you. There's no need for comparison. We only do pure, positive, and productive growth. So somebody else may need to have a bone reset because, they broke their leg in 3 places. Somebody else may just need to revamp their living room or clean out their closet. The reset is to you. It's whatever you are actually trying to do. Some of the benefits, again, propel your career forward, boost cash flow and financial wellness, deepen and enrich your personal relationships, and then you get the personalized feedback from me, from Dr. Martin, from different people. So I did want to let you know what is going on with the reset. That's enough of us being at the board. That's the second part of that commercial. If you're interested, please jump in now. We do have the sale price going on for $99. It's regular $249. True story here, limited spaces so that we can give attention to everybody that's in there. That's how we're able to guarantee the growth. So if you know it's something you want to do, get in with that $99 or get with 3 of your friends and 3 of y'all get in for $300 instead of one of you paying $250. And that is enough of the board. Now we're going to leave the board and come right back to speaking with Anita Cassell as far as being authentically ourselves. Here we go. Thank you so much. I love getting to do the reset. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I love what I get to do with the reset. I started it back in 2015 for myself. Just like, hey, I'm doing a lot of work, but what am I doing? And, maybe that's just me. I was like, I'm doing a lot of work. I think I'm making the money I've always wanted to make, but I don't know what I'm doing. Not like where I'm going, but just doing so much that you really can't see. And I was like, I still have, I had subscriptions, like you have paid subscriptions. I had subscriptions that I hadn't used for over 3 or 4 years. So when I did that reset, just 1 month alone, I was able to save like $750 off stuff that I no longer was using. And so from that, I've been able to do other things, speaking, writing books, publishing other people. It's been great. And so I was like, let me share it. And they have experienced benefits too. So that's enough about the reset. I was asking you before we went to the commercial break, how do you separate? Oh, wait, guys, let me tell you this. I am here with Anita Cassell, Assistant Vice President, yielding on the East Coast, industry voice. I can think of 3 or 4 people that I see with higher visibility who she is actually like being instrumental in them growing and them having the space that they have in the industry and them being able to do what they authentically want to do. as it relates to education, being in management, being a leader, and being unafraid to show up unapologetically as themselves. So Anita, I said a lot there. I thank you for your patience. Now it's all back to you. How do we separate what is our hang up versus when it's someone else's hang up and being authentic?
Well, first, I want to say the synergy thing that you just talked about sounds amazing. So I actually didn't know about that. And now that I know, I want to look into that as well. I think that's amazing. And that's part of you being your authentic self, is by helping others. Because what I know about you is that you like to help people. You're there, you listen, you talk, you want to help people grow. That's being your authentic self. So I can appreciate that you're doing something to help other people. That's awesome. That's amazing. And I thought of like 10 things that I could use help while you were doing that commercial. So that was awesome.
Listen, it's life changing. And
Yeah,
it's funny because you're like, I can do it. I can do it on my own, but things come for your time. And whatever gets your attention is going to get your intention. So that's why we have to have that synergy to bring our attention back to the things that are important to us.
That's amazing. So back to the question about in the industry and what do we do when the hangups with someone else? So I think there's a lot of times the hangups are due to, as you mentioned, jealousy. I think there's people that feel like maybe they would do a better job or they should be in those positions. And maybe they have something to bring to the table and they could do a position like that. But I think as a leader, learning how to deal with those different behaviors and different people that may be under you is really important, because everybody's not the same. So you can't deal with each person the same necessarily. So one thing I believe in is, as you said, there's been leaders under me that I want them to be themselves. I want them to challenge me. I want them to push the buttons. I want them to be who they are, because if they're not going to be happy in what they're doing. They're not going to be thorough in what they're doing. The more that you allow people to be themselves, and when I was learning to be my authentic self, I think the first thing I learned was allowing others under me and allowing them to be their authentic self. Everything shouldn't be, when we're in leadership, I said this, this is my way, this is my way. Let people, you're going to learn so much from other people just by letting them be their self. Just like the story I think you had told before about a manager not knowing how to do a specific set, and a staff member calling them out on that and saying, well, as a manager, shouldn't you know how to do that? And the manager doing the right thing by saying, you know what, you're right, and giving that back to to the person, because they should be delegating. I don't think we should ever think we know it all, because we don't. But if you're allowing the people around you to be themselves just like you are, you're going to learn so much from each other. And that's how you build an awesome team.
Yeah. In that case, that manager did. They slid it right back to the person who questioned him and said, you're right. So I'm going to assign this to you. And I was just like, okay, it does solve it. And I do think, as you said too, I agree. Thank you so much. None of us knows it all. No. Nobody knows it all. If you know it all, you're probably underpaid and undervalued wherever you are, because if you know it all, you know it all. And you have the market share, the lion's share of the market, because you are the only one right now. So I wanted to ask about that. So thank you for sharing that, because that is something definitely for new leaders and people new in the industry. Y'all, we finna do it now. Check this value that's about to hit you. For new leaders and for people who are even new in the industry, because you come in, you're looking for someone to model, a practice to model. You're looking toward people who you deem to be more successful in this area. And so, yeah, it will be really easy for you to only do what other people are doing and not be able to bring your authentic self. So, okay, I was going to go somewhere, but I'm going to stay here. So let me ask this next question, because I wanted to go somewhere else for the new leaders. I'm just going to say, do your best to be authentically you, and things that need to be adjusted to improve your performance, to improve teamwork, to improve organizational health. Do those things, but make sure it's something that is actually a valid criticism. It's actually something you can change, and it's not something that someone else is carrying.
Right.
For you new leaders, I want to share this as well. Sometimes people who are inauthentic or they haven't learned to be authentic themselves, message, they may distrust your authenticity. So, how might that show up, Anita? If I am uncomfortable being authentically me, how might it show up that I distrust you being authentically you or some other people?
Absolutely. I think that sometimes we, um, when people are around us that are not being their authentic self and we're not being ours, you're gonna bump heads a lot more. There's gonna be a lot of challenges, challenging each other for that. I don't know if it's for that space, but you're challenging each other for every little thing. And it doesn't need to be like that. If you just allow each other to be yourself, then you're going to see that that team pulls together so quickly. There's so much more harmony in the team. But if you don't have people being their self, then, or even if you have one and not the other, you're going to bump heads. You're going to constantly be pulling and trying to, well, are they questioning me? Are they, disrespecting? Are they, challenging my authority? You're going to find that because you're not comfortable with yourself. And if you're
Yes.
not, until you're comfortable, everybody else around you can see that. They can feel it, they can sense it. So they're going to challenge you even more because you're going to cave. You're going to do things that you wouldn't do if you were being your authentic self. I learned that. And I learned that with so many trials and tribulations of learning that, wow, if I was just being me and allowing them to be them, we wouldn't be having these disagreements and challenges all the time. And exactly that's the way it worked out. Is now it's such a cohesive team just because you're allowing people to be them and not expecting them to be another version of you.
Yes. Yes. That I think is what we do. That's actually a form of projection, though a
Yeah.
lot of people don't know it. When I say, if it was me, I would do this. What I'm
Yes.
saying is, I am looking through my own filter, but it was never me,
Right.
so I wouldn't do that. So a lot of times when I hear people, especially if they're frustrated, well, if I was the educator, I would do this. Okay, so what now you actually are projecting what you feel or what you think. You're not coming from, this is what the policy says, this is the standardized approach you're using for the system. You're just saying, if it was me, it was this. And so anything that's not you is less than. Like, you
Right.
really have to be aware of it. That
Yeah.
so yeah, that's good. I also wanted to share this, as inauthentic people may distrust your authenticity. If that is the case, again, recognize that is something with them. Now, I don't want you to be like that video that went around a few years back, be like, well, that's a them problem. Ain't got nothing to do with me. No, that's not true. Eventually, a them problem that remains a them problem, if they're on your team, it will become a us problem. It will come up. But I do want you to not stop. I don't want you to be inauthentic just because someone else doesn't trust your authenticity. I want you to know that is something that they may have to work out. And if they never work it out, even time will begin to show your pattern of consistency. So maybe they don't trust that you're authentic, but they can trust your pattern. They can trust your consistency. Before we go on to another commercial, and I go all deep into being like authentically you and why it's such a benefit, what are some of the things you've experienced on this side of being authentic? On the decision to just be Anita, subject matter expert, industry voice, someone who's worked in this field, handling budgets, doing capacity plannings, having meetings with people from C-suite to frontline and everywhere in between, vendors, driving change, being that change agent. On this side of your professional life, what are some things authenticity has helped you solidify and move forward?
I think that for me, it has brought more support from those avenues, especially in the C suite, because they know even if behind the scenes they talk about, oh, what is she wearing today? Anything like that, they know that Anita's going to be herself, and they know that I'm going to always do my job. I'm going to do the best I could do. But I think I gained a lot more support, because when you're not being your authentic self, I think that sometimes you turn into a person just for that particular situation. So for this meeting, you may be this way. For this situation, you're acting a different way. For this one, and people don't really know who you are, what you stand for. So I think when you can get that authenticity out there, you're going to have a lot more respect as far as working with those vendors and the staff, and the consistency, like you spoke about. Once you find that authentic self, you're going to hold on to that, and you're going to continue to do that daily. And when you do, I think you'll see such a difference in how the people around you act towards you, as well as leaders under you, how they embrace you, how they now embrace the things that you are trying to do, because you're going to allow them to do those things the way they see in their authentic self. So it brings so much more peace, I think, in your life, whether it's professionally or personally, because I worked on it on both sides, professionally and personally. And I am unapologetic for being myself. And I think that I have just seen a big difference in my life, professionally and personally, because of how I've decided to be myself. And I do think some of that comes with experience and age as well. As we get older, we realize, like, I can't please everybody. I cannot make everybody happy. All I can do is be me, and hope that that's good enough for the people that I surround myself with.
I love it. I love it. I truly believe that's actually being humble. I think humility is being fully who you are,
Right.
while not trying to force somebody else to be less than who they are.
Absolutely.
You be fully you and allowing them to be fully them. And I just think that's really humility, because it's not overshooting and it's not undershooting. We don't want false humility.
That's another topic, humility in the workplace.
My gosh, it is. It is a topic, and navigating that too, you really have to vet, like,
Absolutely.
what is yours, what is not. So I want to thank you so much. Is there anything you'd like to share that maybe we haven't hit as it relates to authenticity? We have some amazing people that's going to be joining this series. We have Crystal Westmoreland, Kyrie Thomas. We have some great individuals that'll be on. You have a standing invite, if you ever want to pop on and join us. But we have some amazing people who are going to talk about authenticity. And I don't want it to only be women. I don't want authenticity to be lost, because we may be speaking in an echo chamber. So we have women, we have men, we have different cultures, and we're going to have different ages too. And so we can really look at authenticity as something that many people struggle with. We struggle with it. If you think about it, even in middle school, we're trying to figure out how we fit in. What's the pecking order? And we go from being a kid at kindergarten, just being fully us, to, hey, whatever we're doing. And then we begin to conform to some things, some social norms, or what we think are social norms. And then we get a little wisdom and we go back to being authentically ourselves. So we're going to use different people so that we can help just share information with all people so that they can be more comfortable being authentically themselves. What would you like to share, Anita? What would you like to share with those who are listening?
Well, I think it's amazing that you're doing this series. I think it's so needed. I think there's so many people out there that don't know, they don't even realize that they weren't being their authentic selves, and they don't know how to be their authentic self. It takes some real soul searching to make that happen and to find that, and not to apologize for it. So I just can't thank you enough for doing this series. I plan to watch every episode, chime into every episode, because it means a lot to me. And I'm sure there's more I can learn on being my authentic self as well. So I think my ending things would be, just dig in and see what kind of person you want to be, or what kind of person you know that you are. And let that show every day in what you do, whether that's personal or professional. Let it show the kind of person you are, because I think that what we miss is people not knowing who you are, what you stand for, or just what type of person you are. And that's, to me, is being your authentic self, being you.
Yeah, when you were sharing with me, you're right. When you were sharing with me, One of the things that hit me after talking with you at HSPA, and maybe it hit me before, but I didn't remember it, so it hit me deeply then, is if I don't tell people and show people who I am, I'm at the mercy of whatever narrative someone else who may be inauthentic is putting out there. So I do have to let people, they just show up authentically me. I used to think being professional meant none of me, just only corporate, corporate and none of me. And now I recognize that even in and of itself is fear-based. So I'm going to be me. I'm going to bring the game, the skill set, and all the knowledge, and so should you who are listening. Be you and bring the skill set, knowledge, and expertise that you have to the table, and people are going to enjoy working with you.
Absolutely.
They will. All right, so that's all we have for today. Anita, if you give us just a second, I would love to debrief with you right after this. Guys, this has been Knowledge and Nonsense. We're talking about being authentic and being authentically you. Today, we talked about whether it's what do we say? If it's dangerous or if it's daring, in an industry full of innovation, being a disruptor in a good way, and trends, for lack of a better word. There's so many opportunities for you to kind of lean into these things. But if you're stuck being inauthentic or not knowing how to move, you could be your own roadblock. Ouch, I know, I'm sorry, I love you, but you could be your own roadblock. And so, Anita, thank you so much for being with us today. I want to thank the people who have watched. If you're on LinkedIn, right, Jamel. If you're on LinkedIn, I may not know that you're watching right now, but have no fear that we will answer all of the comments or whatever it is that you have placed in there. Jamel, I want to, she said, trend towards truth. Thank you so much, Jamel. Thank you so much. Y'all be safe. God bless. Have a great day. And we'll see you soon. Yes, we will see you soon. As soon as I hit this button. Absolutely. Let's do it.
You're authentic. Scrub Ball is all about celebrating healthcare. If you're in the healthcare field, no matter where you work, we celebrate you.